What's up, guys? I wanted to take a quick little departure from my normal reef aquarium stuff to talk a little bit about underwater photography. I always joke that whenever I go on vacation, I want to spend half the time underwater, and pretty much all of my future trips, I try to always incorporate diving if at all possible. So first and foremost, when you're thinking about underwater photography, underwater videography, you really should be a pretty experienced diver. The most challenging thing is going to be the diving itself. Just pointing a camera at stuff is not that difficult, but a whole bunch can go wrong on the diving end, so I really wouldn't recommend it unless you are a pretty adept diver. On a certified dive, everybody is certified as at least a recreational diver or above. And without fail, somebody needs to be rescued to a minor degree. We go on fairly safe dives. I'm just doing reefs generally, but it's entirely possible for something really bad to go wrong. Ocean currents can be very strong and whatnot. And in those situations, you have to be willing to just let go of your camera and just, it's gone, because your life is in danger sort of situation. In my last dive to Mexico, I did some diving with bull sharks. And on our way up, everybody has to go up together because the sharks that we've been feeding for the past half hour like to come up with you. Go figure, it's like the food source is going up, we're coming up too. At some point, one of the guys was having some difficulty because you're wearing extra weights and stuff like that. And one of the dive masters, the ones with like the poles to help fend off some of the sharks that get too close to the guy feeding, that they have to protect his back because he can't see behind him. He just handed me the pole. He's like, I gotta go rescue some dude. So he just hands me this pole. I'm like, oh good. So pretty much you have to always prepare for something going wrong. And when that something does go wrong to you, you need both hands. And if you're holding on to like a camera rig's gotta go. You have to save your life. So that is one of the little things you have to kind of prepare yourself mentally for. It doesn't matter if it's a $5,000 camera if you're about to drown. So that brings me to what kind of cameras are out there. Lately, I've been shooting with just a regular little action cam. I used to have, well, I guess I still do for a little while longer. This is like a mirrorless camera that goes into here, but it's a full dome setup, and I have like a real fisheye lens and everything. And clearly this, even though it's much older, is going to take better photos and better video than a typical action cam, even if its specs don't necessarily keep it current anymore. This one here shoots at 720p, which isn't even full HD being 1080p. And a lot of action cams nowadays shoot 4K. This thing probably still beats out some of the newer action cams just in terms of pure image quality, even if the resolution doesn't match up with that. The other thing is like the bigger housing. It's going to be a lot more robust, and it can go much deeper. Now this thing here is rated to, it's called 10 bar, the company is, and 10 bar roughly equates to 300 feet. As a recreational diver, you're not going to be going down 300 feet. That means you've pretty much died. Your camera will be fine, but you're dead. Just the way that pressure works, you're really not going to be going down much below 100 feet. So this is definitely overkill. There are some people that use like nitrox and stuff like that and can go much deeper to see like shipwrecks and stuff like that. And that's when something like this makes a lot more sense. As I mentioned though, this is the sort of thing I shoot with now. Mainly, it's much easier to throw into your suitcase. It's just a little Sony action cam. And the nice thing about these guys is that they're very inexpensive. This guy's under $1,000, and you're probably thinking, still, could be a lot of money. It's probably, I don't know, a few $100, $400 or $500 maybe at the most. Perhaps like the most important thing is, since I live in Ohio, I don't get to go into the ocean nearly as much as I would like. I can just purchase one of these pretty much after the trip, sell it for most of the cost, and the next time I go scuba diving, I'll just repurchase a later version of an action cam, and I've essentially just rented the thing for a lot less than what it would cost to actually go through like a camera rental website or anything like that. So I could probably use this thing all year long and then sell it and then repurchase it the next time I go on a vacation. Now, if I lived by the ocean, I would probably invest in something similar to this. I mean, there is a little mirrorless camera in here. I can probably show you here. Big snaps. And it's nicely sealed. It's got like this little key mechanism here, if I can show you. Pops this thing off. There's an O-ring. Sometimes there's even 2 O-rings that just for an extra bit of protection. And this little camera here is just a small mirrorless. So compare like this little camera here, it's a little Panasonic, to an actual DSLR. So this is a 5D, and this is what I shoot coral with, just at the greenhouse. And some very, very serious photographers would take a camera such as this into the water. If you can imagine, again, camera size difference here, what kind of housing it would take to put a 5D into. It's going to take up practically your entire chest-sized thing that you're going to be going down with, and that does not include the lights. We'll get to the lights in a sec. But you can pretty much expect that the housing will increase the entire size of your camera rig by quite a bit. And you can also expect that it's not going to come cheap. I kind of always budget, if you're gonna get like a camera, this camera back in the day costs about $700–800. Pretty much to take this guy underwater with everything you're gonna need, it's the housing and all the related accessories is gonna be easily double that. So pretty much, if you're budgeting a camera and you wanna go diving with it, just triple the cost of it, and that's going to get you really close to the price you're going to have to pay. Now, you could go with a less expensive housing, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because worst case scenario, it leaks. If that happens, your camera will not survive. Corrosion, once it gets started, kind of spreads and continues, and you'll realize pretty quickly that repairing a camera could be more than the cost of the camera itself. So again, I would not look to cut cost on the housing if you're going to be doing this extensively. Now, having said that about the housings, just because you spent a lot of money on a housing does not mean it's going to be perfect either. You really do have to keep up on the maintenance of the seals and whatnot, because no amount of money spent is going to offset just pure dumb user error. Like if you have sand on the seals, if you have sand on the O-rings and whatnot, that is your own darn fault, and it doesn't matter if you spent 10 grand on your housing, it's gonna leak. So that's also one thing to keep in mind. It's that you really have to always, always, always rinse and rinse and rinse and make sure everything is nicely greased up and ready to go. Otherwise, you're gonna be sorry. We should talk a little bit about the color that you can expect to see down below. It's gonna look pretty blue. Light gets soaked up by the water column itself. And so after about 20 feet, you're pretty much only going to be seeing a lot of the blues and blacks, because the reds, the yellows, and even some of the greens are kind of absorbed at that point, almost completely. By 50 feet, 100 feet, it's just going to be blue and black down there. So what a lot of photographers do is they use something like this. It's this is a yellow filter, and it kind of helps balance that loss out. And so you can really get very, very good results to get your image closer to daylight. Some people even shoot with stuff like this, like the gels on aquariums, just to kind of offset like an LED look. Now, if you're using a dome port in a very wide angle, like a fisheye lens, you have to actually get a film that covers this entire dome. So it's a little bit more involved in this, because if you know about what a fisheye lens looks like, you can't screw anything like this on. I should mention that if you are going to go the route of something like like a mirrorless or a DSLR where you have an interchangeable lens, very likely the lenses used most when you're talking about underwater photography and videography are going to be fisheye. And it's a very strange phenomenon that happens. So first off, our eyes, when you look at the geometry, it is a fisheye image. I mean, our eyes, kind of this shape. And the other thing is the way that the light actually hits our retina, it's an upside down image. You can Google that if you don't believe me. But the light actually hitting the back of your eye is an upside down image of what we kind of see in the world around us. And our brain flips it right side up just in the processing of that light information. Strangely, when we look at straight lines, so like for example, like the window behind me, the wall behind me, everything looks straight. It's not curved like a fisheye, even though our eye is a fisheye. All of that stuff gets fixed to rectilinear. When you look at a fisheye lens of that same thing, if we were to shoot that, you would get this kind of this barrel-looking distortion, right? And you get that fisheye look. Strangely, when you look at images underwater with a fisheye, you don't get those 90 degrees things to kind of orient yourself. It's a lot more, open and organic. It's strange in that way. So when you look at footage of underwater stuff shot with fisheye, it looks fine. It looks rectilinear. Like you wouldn't be able to say, oh, that's a weird, like a weird distortion underwater. It doesn't seem like there's a distortion at all. It's kind of a weird little mental trick that we play on ourselves. So going back to the subject of lighting, if it's going to be very blue down there, you have the option of trying to yellow it up with one of these filters. Other option is to actually take your lights down there with you. And so these guys are light and motion floodlights. They're flood video lights, 2500 lumen. So let's see here. You kind of have to unlock it there. So I had it unlocked for travel, and during travel, this thing kicked on during so there's 3 settings, and this thing was just on in my bag, and I went through the airport with it. It went through the scanner, blinking, and I don't know why they didn't stop me. Just gonna throw that out there. But yeah, so here it's locked. So yeah, bring your own light. I'm actually going to be keeping these guys, and my overall strategy is just to kind of replace action cams as I go. So that this one I think it already has sold on eBay right now, and I just kind of just plug in the new camera. The lights don't seem to care about what camera is in there, but they're very helpful because once you're down there, you kind of want to see all the rich colors of the reef, and even with just a yellow filter, you're not going to be able to see all the different colors. So unless you bring your own light, you're just kind of missing out on a lot of the experience. Having said that, these things barely kick out enough light to make a difference. And if you've seen some really professional rigs, like this thing here is about a little bit smaller than my fist. There's some that are some LED big lighting units that are as big as my head. And if you saw the price tag of those, you'd know why I went with something like this, because it's like taking a small automobile down in the water with you. They're like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 even dollars. So unless you're doing this as a profession, getting a steady paycheck for it, I wouldn't recommend picking something like that up. Unless you're in the water all the time and you just have disposable income and just love it, go for it. But for kind of a recreational vacation diver, no, not so much. So these guys will do. All right, guys, that's a little change of pace. Just wanted to cover a topic that's not necessarily aquarium related. Obviously, you could take a camera like this underwater and take a look at what's going on in your tank. And there is a benefit to do that. So for instance, let's just say that this is the wall of my aquarium, right? If you point your camera outside the tank directly at it, it's fine, it's not going to receive any distortion. But if you start changing the angle of it in relation to like this pane of glass, it's going to introduce a distortion, and you really can't like focus your way out of it. It's going to consistently just blur the image and smear the image if I go anywhere but exactly 90 degrees, because the glass itself is acting like a lens. So if you obviously are taking this guy underwater with you, you don't have any of that distortion issue, because there's no other pane of glass that's bending light. It's just this and looking directly at your subject matter. So it's kind of a cute little thing. I'll post some B-roll here just to show some stuff. Problem is I can't monitor what this thing's actually seeing until I finally take it out of the water and download all the info. So you might have missed focus altogether. Oh, I should mention about focus. You need to have a camera that does continuous autofocus. Some cameras, like for example this one, if I were to take this underwater, this particular camera system does not have continuous autofocus. It has autofocus if you are just snapping a photo, but for video, it's going to rely on manual focus. And unless you are just the most experienced diver, because there are ports and stuff like that that give you manual focus ability, but I really wouldn't recommend it. There's enough going on with just the diving part of the trip that that's just one extra thing that I really wouldn't want to be messing with. So I can manage pointing it at stuff, but still you need to make sure that whatever your subject is, it's going to get in focus. Are you actually nailing it in the center of the frame and whatnot? But yeah, continuous autofocus, it's a must. So whatever camera system you go with, and pretty much all little action cameras, they do have that. So, and I imagine most people that want to do underwater photography, videography are going to be using something like this. So yeah, but keep that in mind, because if you think that, oh, I can manual focus all the time, like, no, I wouldn't try that. So anyways, little change of pace. Hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions about underwater videography, just toss it in the comments below. Not that I'm an expert, but it's one of the things I enjoy. See you guys later.